So we're going to go through what does a socially distanced church look like? What are the guidelines and what are some creative ways that charismatic branches of the church can implement these guidelines? Next, we're going to be talking to Bishop Mark Nicholson. And we're going to be looking at what does the church look like moving forward, because many pastors, many leaders like yourself are saying that actually it's not going to be exactly like it was before. And then finally, we're going to go through our mobile solution for a socially distanced church with our co-founder, Corey Belfon. So we're looking at 8 key considerations. And these considerations are based on government guidance and also considerations that have been put together by the Places of Worship Task Force. Now, some of you may or may not be aware, but this task force didn't actually have representation from the charismatic branch of the church, which is why, we wanted to have Bishop on this webinar to really give you the perspective of how a charismatic church is really thriving in these times and how we can embody these guidelines within our culture, within the charismatic church culture. So the first thing that we see is the size of gatherings. Now, I know that a number of people believe that you can only have gatherings of 30 people, but actually within places of worship, so just places of worship, you can actually have more than 30 people. But this is only for places of worship. The exception to the rule are weddings, funerals, baptisms, and those sorts of events. So actually, if you are having a gathering within your place of worship, it can actually be more than 30 people, but you do have to abide by social distancing guidelines. So that can be 2 meters apart, or if you are wearing PPE or you're taking precautions, then 1 meter. But, if you are having gatherings more than that, you really do need to be having a risk assessment and really looking at your particular circumstances. So speaking of risk assessments, and this is something that a number of you asked about within your questions when you signed up for this webinar. So you have the discretion to decide when you think it's safe to reopen. So even though you have legally been able to open since the 4th of July, it's at your discretion when you decide to reopen. A consideration that you really do want to be thinking about is not just your Sunday services, but are you an employer? Do you have volunteers that are in your building and are in your premises throughout the week? And if so, there are some considerations that you need to be considering around that also. And there's a template here. So if some of you ask, what are the risk assessment considerations? Here is a template for you, and we will be posting that in the chat later on and also in the follow-up email. So logistics. So further lowering capacity, you might decide that actually within your church, it's not advisable to have more than 30 people or even 30 people. So, you may decide to actually start out with less people, for example. So it's really dependent on your particular circumstances, the culture within your church. If you are having larger gatherings, think about staggering entry times. I know a number of churches have multiple services. It might be something that you consider having a night service and also an afternoon and maybe a morning service, so that you can stagger start times and that there's not too many people in the building at once. You might decide that when people are navigating their way through your building, that there's a set path so that you don't have people walking in different directions. There's a set path of traffic that you're directing the traffic within your building. You might also want to advise visitors that where possible, maybe to drive to church instead of catching London transport, perhaps. These are all logistical issues that you might want to consider when you are reopening your church. So with regards to hospitality, I know this is a big thing in our churches. We like to greet people sometimes before service. We have tea, we have coffee, we have, a little croissants, things like that. So how do you accommodate that in this new scenario? Well, The only thing that is allowed is table service. So if you are going to serve refreshments, if you are going to serve food and drink, it can only be table service and a minimal staff and minimal contact. So it's not that you can't do it, but these are just some of the precautions that you absolutely have to have in place. So singing, and again, a lot of you asked about this in the questions prior to this event. So no group singing inside. So what you can have is one person, one worship leader singing at the front. And then if you have service outside, you can have a small group of worship leaders in front of the worshippers. But that is allowed. And in terms of when this is going to change, we don't know, because these parameters are constantly changing. And so it's important that, you know, you stay abreast of the government guidelines, because literally they're really being updated regularly. So in terms of hygiene, it's really important that when you do open, on entering and leaving, everyone should be asked to wash their hands thoroughly. You should provide hand sanitizer in multiple locations. Toilets inside or linked to places of worship should be kept open and carefully managed. So they should be cleaned regularly. They should be monitored to make sure that they're not overcrowded or that they're clean. So these are the extra things that you need to put in place: extra cleaning times, extra cleaning staff. All surfaces, especially those frequently touched, like handrails and doorknobs, they need to be cleaned really regularly. So this is a big thing in terms of how often, you know, we clean the sanctuary. Hygiene has to be a really, really top priority if you are going to reopen. And then the decision should be made locally on how frequently you clean your place of worship. So this hasn't been set in stone. So there's no guidance saying you have to clean a certain amount of times a day, but I guess it depends on, you know, a number of variables: how many people are in your building, how frequently it's used. But there is no specific guidance on how often you should do a deep clean. But I would definitely say, definitely before you reopen, a deep clean should absolutely take place. So another thing is, the government is advising that you don't take cash unnecessarily. And if you do, that it's collected in a bucket, so there's minimal contact with the cash. So ideally, you don't want to be taking cash. So when you're looking at how to collect donations, you want to be finding ways to encourage your members and your visitors to donate digitally. Now, this is something that is also important during this time where we haven't been able to meet in person, you know, collecting donations, making sure that those that want to give have a means of doing so easily. And the GoodtoGive mobile application is a great option for this. And we're going to talk to you more about this. Corey Belfon, our co-founder, is going to talk to you more about the app and why you should be using it and how it can help facilitate this. So, you know, our church doors are open. They are absolutely open, so you can begin to have services again. But streaming has also been a huge opportunity for us to really reach more people than we ever have. So the government guidance is not to stop streaming, not to stop broadcasting your services online, because it's such a great opportunity. And we're going to hear more of this from Bishop Mark Nicholson, who is just doing a great job of this with his team, and just seeing how this how COVID has really given us an opportunity to further expand and spread the word of God. So I want to share with you some creative examples of how this is being adopted, how social distancing rules are being applied, but also how we're being creative and how we are, you know, still worshiping in more creative ways. So car park church, and I love this example. So social distancing, if we're in our cars, we can literally sing, shout, praise God as loud as we want to. So this is an option. If you have a premises where you have a big car park, you know, so car park church is a great option for you. You can see some people here even coming out of their cars, but, you know, especially now that it's summer, it's a great opportunity to do this and do something different and have fun with it. So this is a great example that a number of churches in the US have adopted. outdoor church. Now, recently I had a meeting with the church leaders from my church, and they wanted feedback on, you know, how the congregants felt about re-attending church, going back to church. And a lot of people actually said they're still a little bit apprehensive about going into a church building, especially if they live with vulnerable adults. But what a number of people said, that they'd be more open to outdoor church. So again, this is another opportunity for you to get creative. And also it's a great way to evangelize to people, so they can be part of the church experience as well. And then, of course, we have the hybrid church. And again, Bishop Mark is going to talk to us about this, what this looks like in real time for a real church. But the option here is you can continue to live stream from one location to various locations. You can continue to live stream from one location to people in their homes, and you can have a hybrid. So you can have a service that is going on live, but you're also streaming it via platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, whilst the service is live and whilst you're in your place of worship. So there's a number of options you can use. And, you know, we have to remember that God is the creator. He is the author of creativity. And when one door closes, another one option opens. So this is a great opportunity for us to really get creative with different formats of worship, and really continuing to spread the word and meet the needs of members and visitors. So I would really encourage you to really look at the government guidance, because literally this is changing on a daily basis. So you can search for Church of England COVID-19 guidance. There's a whole document there. Also the guidance for the safe use of places of worship during the pandemic. And like I said, I will post these links and also put them in the follow-up email. And so that you can constantly check these guidelines and make sure that you are up to date. So I want to introduce, this is my last slide before I introduce you to Bishop Mark Nicholson. Now, Bishop Mark Nicholson, he is the senior pastor of Acts Christian Ministry. He is well-versed, well-traveled, and has preached the gospel of Jesus Christ, transforming lives in several countries, most notably South Africa, Nigeria, the USA, Kenya, and Congo, to name but a few. So Bishop Mark also serves the community of the borough of Croydon as a magistrate appointed by the Lord Chancellor. So, you know, Bishop Mark is really having an impact, not only in the church, but also in the community. And honestly, I've had the pleasure of looking at some of the work he's been doing in terms of digital church and the increase in programming that he's offered. And his church is literally such a great example of how the church, how we as, you know, church leaders and, you know, the church can prosper and thrive in times like this. So welcome, Bishop Mark. Welcome, Bishop Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much to being a part of this webinar. Thank you.
Well, you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share. I mean, what your church has been doing is just incredible. I had the pleasure of even watching one of your services, and your whole setup, technologically, visually, is just so impressive. And so we wanted to bring you on so that you can shed some light and really help other churches and other church leaders navigate this time. So tell me, Bishop Mark, what effect has COVID-19 had on your church?
Well, you know, physical distancing has meant that, you know, we had to improve the members' contacts. So before COVID came in, we also had our members on a rota. So we would always check on them. So it was split into 4 quarters, and the 4 pastors would obviously check on them on a weekly basis. And that is also before COVID. Okay. But now they've got much more active because there is no physical contact. So it's amazing to see how the pastors are really working hard to make sure that every member of the congregation is ministered to, make sure that they're not left on the side. We're supporting them. So the pastoral work, and I'm not going to stand here and take all the credit for myself. The leaders have been excellent in ensuring, and the pastors, that we make contact, not literal contact, but through the various applications that there are out there to ensure that they are fine. So the whole pastorage has gone to the next level.
That's amazing, and I think that's testament to the fact that it really is a team effort, isn't it? To really navigate in this time and really pivot. That's incredible. So how has your church adapted during this time? Because like I said, some of the things, the increasing programming, the way you're broadcasting is incredible. So tell us about that. How have you adapted?
I think it's important to say, first and foremost, we post-COVID, we have live streamed before. We were live streaming.
Okay.
And obviously, as we moved to the next level, it wasn't that we were live streaming as intensively, but we had the experience. Mm-hmm. And so when we moved into a position we was not able to meet, with the experience that we had prior, I thought it would be the best thing to ask the ministry if we could invest in a small machine that would be able to do our services. They looked at the situation, trustees, leadership, said, let's do this, because it's important that we keep contact with the ministry. And so a simple little £800 machine, broadcast from my home, started the whole thing going, and we just saw the members logging on week after week, and we were just seeing some growing numbers until we thought, let's take it to the next level. And the ministry was behind us, so we were able to download systems, invest in an iMac, and brought to the point that we could now do like what you're seeing on TV, full-blown broadcasting on every platform, and just touching base with other ministers that would actually give us their opening statements of worship. And we got some good preachers in the ministry, but we were able to say, let's take this to the next level. And a modest size of about 100 people in our congregation, to now we're getting at least 2,000 to 3,000 people following us on our program. And I think what turned it around is that we had one particular series called Finding Your Boaz, where we just launched a program about how individuals, or Ruth, can find their Boaz, as it were. And the following has just been phenomenal. We're looking at least 3,000 people are watching all our services. So if we was in the church, we just wouldn't have place to put them. And they've supported us as well with their generous giving as well.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I just love how we're seeing the church actually go to the community as opposed to, you know, waiting for the community to come to us. It's so, so powerful.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what advice would you give to churches trying to transition their church to the hybrid model that you've adopted?
I would advise them to do their utmost best to make inquiries, and if they're under affiliations or under covering of churches, to ask questions. And I'd like to be in a position that if a church is struggling because maybe the technology is way beyond them, they've never used the technology before, to be open and honest to say, you know what, we don't want to be in this position. How can you help us? And I think where I'm at the next moment, to help our other churches to transition into this areas, because at the end of the day, you've still got to feed your congregation, even if it's Zoom. And sometimes people might not understand how it works. And I think we need to talk, we need to share resources. And that's one thing about me. I love to share and empower. And I think that's my next level. I know many churches that won't be going back into their fellowship. It's come to a point where they just cannot cope with what's going on anymore. They've lost their places of worship, and given an option whether come back or not come back, and they're just not going to do it. So I'd love to help them in understanding this technology, learning Zoom, at least the WhatsApp, the conference calls that's on it, would be able to help them to keep in contact with their congregation.
That's great. That's great. So what practical considerations do church leaders need to consider in terms of training and equipment, and just the online world in general? Because I know you've mentioned, you know, you purchased an iMac and other equipment, but could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. As I said, not every church is going to be blessed with people technologically to deal with things like this. And that's why I think it's important that if a church wants to move down that direction, that they speak, they share. They
Yeah.
say, look, we want to do this. How do we do this? Instead of allowing that church to die or fade away. The next thing they could also do is they can also be more active in their community. I mean, that's what we were called for. So although we're not meeting on the four walls, we can get involved with food banks. We can get involved with other initiatives that will involve the church being more seen in the community. Yeah. What I would say is that we need to also be a bit more wary of the cyber situations out there. We can get zoomed out. There's amount of Zoom meetings that we're on every day. We've got to be wary of that. It's a great technology, but we need to find balance and be careful of what we're getting in, that we don't find that we can get hacked. Things can get into our system because we're on it. And it could be a playground for the devil out there who's knowing that so many people are online. They could use this for their advantage. So we've got to be aware of those things as well. Amazing.
Actually, Corey, can I just ask your opinion there on cybersecurity? Because I know that, you know, you are our technical expert. What things do churches need to be aware of in terms of cybersecurity?
Okay, thanks, Katrina. I think there are some fundamental things which, you know, everybody should be taking into consideration. You know, a network's as weak as its weakest point of entry. So if you are not looking at your local machine that you use and making sure that your patching on your machine is up to date. I mean, one of the biggest problems that the NHS had was that they had machines on their network which hadn't been patched in years. And that's what led to the big problems that they had regarding cybersecurity. So patching is fundamental. You know, I'm split on antivirus. I think you need to be careful about what antivirus you use, because balance between the machine being so slow that you don't even want to use it to, you know, little simple things like you get emails, if in doubt, don't open it. You know, if you see something and it's talking to you and it sounds too good, don't open it. If you see something coming through on your bank and asking you, I mean, one little thing you can do is hover over the link. Don't press it, but just hover over the link and see if the link actually is a link from the place that they're purporting to come from. But in general, I would say the first thing to do is, you know, make sure that your Windows or your Mac system is up to date, and any software that you use regularly, especially web browsers, are up to date. And if you have any security systems, things like firewalls on your network, the firewall that you use at home, your router, make sure that you're up to date with the latest firmware on that router as well. If you're not sure what to do, call your service provider and just say to them, look, you know, is my router up to date? And they can usually do that remotely, because what you normally find is these attackers are attacking from a position of exploits. So where a technology has been around for a long time and it hasn't been updated, they eventually find ways around getting through the security. And you know, if you're not updating your firmware on your devices, then you're vulnerable. That's the first thing that I would focus on.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Corey. So Bishop Mark, so this time of crisis, it has caused significant growth for your church. You haven't seen a reduction in income, in members, or anything like that. Like, how have you accomplished that?
Wow. I think, you know what, I think sound doctrine and sound teaching is so important from the onset. We have not any problems as far as our giving. We thank God. And I think the reason being is because you disciple them from the beginning. You must disciple your people from the beginning so they know how to give. So it's not because they're not in the four walls. They've been taught. I'm transparent with them. They know where we're going as far as the ministry is concerned. They understand the crisis that we're in. And so therefore, we're seeing the level of the programming that we're putting out as well has encouraged people to say, you know, we're dealing with relevant information in this time. It's latching people on. Plus, we're also seeing people grow in the Lord as well. The amount of conversions that we've seen, people giving their lives to the Lord because of this platform, is incredible. That's why we would not dismantle it. If we had to go back tomorrow, full blown, we would not get, and I would tell every pastor out there, do not get rid of this platform, because it's reaching people that you never ever believe you would have ever reached before. So you can't get rid of it and go back into your churches. But transparently, we've been transparent with the people, and good doctrine, and we've discipled them from day one.
Wow. Corey. Thank you, Bishop.
Can I just comment on something? Bishop, you know, the word you use there that really jumps out at me, and it's something that, you know, Des and I, you know, the co-founder, often speak about: transparency. You know, people will support your organization if you show them what you're doing, you're transparent about what you're doing, and you show leadership and you're progressive. If people feel that, you know, you're kind of behind the times and, you know, money's going into a well, but, you know, what's actually coming out of the well, and, you know, what progress are we making? People are less reluctant to want to fund something like that. But if you are showing that, look, you know, something's happened, we've transformed, people can see progression, they can see that, you know, these guys they really know what they're doing. And, you know, if people want to associate with success, people want to associate with doctrine. And I think that, you know, what you've said there is so fundamental. And we work with loads and loads of charities, as you know, up and down churches, up and down the country. And, you know, I see that approach in varying degrees. And you can see where the people who embrace that approach are seeing more success than people who are more hesitant to be as transparent.
Corey, can I add to that? Because I think when we started, the church was so gracious to us to give us £800 to buy a live streaming instrument, which served us well. And then we launched the AVC, which is called the Acts Virtual Church. And so we wanted a fund of, say, £7,000 that we could bring an automated system, that we could bring the program and the leveling that we're seeing today. And we told them, if you could bless us, we would also begin to give you better programming. And I'm telling you something, the way the people sowed into the ministry, and it was quite good, and it's not a secret, but we didn't have to put any more pressure on the existing funds of the ministry. Every bit of equipment bought that you've witnessed on the level has been done by the generosity of the people. And I think within 4 or 5 weeks or less, we raised at least £3,500, something that we could buy the equipment to give us the level of the type of equipment. And so that's transparently, as you're saying, and it didn't put our finances hasn't gone down. And I'm saying, thanks be to God, and not bragging, but I'm saying the discipling, the people getting fed by this way has proven that this is a ministry I want to sow into. And I thank God for the leadership, the trustees, and the leaders that came together and made this decision. It's not just a one-man band, it's a team effort. But it's been amazing.
Absolutely. I know your team. I know you've got a strong team down there. And I think, you know, that's testimony to the fact that you yourself are a good leader, great leader. And so therefore, great leadership attracts positive people, good people.
Appreciate. That's very kind of you to say.
Amen. Incredible. So Bishop Mark, what would you say has been the most successful social media platform for you? Where have you had the most traction?
I think we've always been on Facebook. So Facebook has always been the most attractive place for us. And now of late, we've gone to more platforms at this moment. The platforms that we're now on is YouTube and Vimeo. And we're seeing people from all over the place. And now we're also seeing, as soon as they get the notifications, they're watching us on YouTube. And it's amazing. The feedback is just amazing to know that they're getting the gospel and they've been blessed by it.
Amazing. And again, in all corners of the world that wouldn't have previously, you know, been able to hear from your ministry. So absolutely incredible.
I'll just say, funny enough, you know, the church is the original social network. So, you know, it's just the digital world has caught up late, but now, you know, the church is embracing it, and it's the perfect place for the church.
As I said, we were always on streaming, but I think because of the time of the season that we're in at this moment, it's just taking it to another height. And you've seen for yourself. We're learning as we go along. But I think, Corey, the word change is so important. We've always heard change because we can't see it. We don't know what it's about. But as a visionary, I embrace it. And if I embrace change, and then the people that are leading in the ministry sees it and it's opening doors, changes shouldn't be scary, because I think out of chaos, you'll find creativity. And that's exactly what the Acts has done. This chaos has brought the creativity out of the ministry.
Amazing. And that is a really nice place for me to ask you the last question I have for you, Bishop. What is the future of the church? Because many say that church as usual isn't returning. We have to evolve, which is, you know, something both you and Corey have said. So what does the church of the future look like?
Wow. You know, that song comes into mind, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. I would not like to say what it looks like in the future, but I'm trying to live it a day at a time, because as you're saying, we're getting guidelines changing hourly, minutely. So you can actually get into something and feel comfortable, and the next minute it's changed.
Yeah.
I would love to see that we could all go back into our place of worship again. There are people that I haven't hugged for months.
Yeah.
Now, that is something. I go and visit them, and it's just difficult for me to stand at one end. And I'll be honest with you, I sometimes break the rule. I do. I break the rule, and I say, "Come here." I'm like, I haven't got it. Yeah. But even that's wrong. And confession is good, but that's not where I'm from. Yeah. Hugging them, greeting them all my life, and not able to do that. That's troublesome. And to the point now that when we record, I'm able to put my suits on. That was funny, not wearing a suit and going to church and just being at home. It was really very difficult. So what does the church look like in the future? I don't really know. But as long as we can reach our congregants, as long as we can feed them with the word, as long as we can use this technology to empower them, strengthen them, and it's doing it, well, I give God thanks for that. But I want to help others. That's what I want to do. Okay. I really want to help churches who might not have this technology, that we could bring it to them and say, look, here it is. We can help you to broadcast to your congregation. That's my next thing. I don't want to leave churches to die and dry up. Yeah. If I could help them, I would really do that.
That's incredible. And you know what, like we've said, the work you've done is testament to everything that you're saying. And you know, we cannot wait to see what you're going to continue to do, Bishop Mark. So I'm going to come back to you shortly so that you can tell us about your experience of working with GoodtoGive. But I just want to thank you, Bishop Mark. So I want to introduce you all to Corey Belfon, our co-founder, who you have already heard from. So Corey has over 25 years of experience working in the private and the public sector. He is a software developer and a systems architect who has been developing technology for the church and for the third sector for over a decade. So welcome, Corey. Excited to talk to you about, you know, the moves that we are making as a business and the mobile application in particular. So we work with a lot of churches and have done so for over a decade. So what was interesting, and you mentioned this, is that you were developing the mobile app way before this even happened. And it seems like our mobile app couldn't have been more fitting for the times that we find ourselves in. So could you just tell us a bit about the mobile application, Corey?
Okay, so as you mentioned there, I mean, we've been on a journey. I mean, our philosophy as a business has always been to try and have a distributed, flexible, scalable system that makes life easier for our clients and takes the complexity away from a lot of the things out there. As Bishop mentioned, there's there are different people out there, different skill sets, and the more simple we can make things, the better. So And also, one of the challenges that we try to solve is that, you know, a lot of churches aren't always blessed to have maybe the sort of support that Bishop's church has, Acts have, and you know, they may not even have the environment to be able to build that. So we try to develop systems that give them a certain amount of structure, and it also allows them that if people move through the church, because often enough, sometimes with the smaller churches, you find that there's a lot of pressure on one person to hold everything together. And sometimes that person could get burnt out, or they move on, or something happens, unfortunately. And so by having a partner like ours who have that philosophy enables churches to have consistency through you know, that sort of transition. So the systems that we develop follow all of those sort of principles and philosophies, and the mobile apps are no different.
Excellent. So what would you say is the main benefit of our mobile application?
Okay, so clearly in this time we have an unprecedented situation where we are forced to be disparate. Now, our app is designed to work in two ways, really. So investing in our app doesn't mean that when you get back to church, it's now redundant. What we've tried to do is develop a system which can coexist with normal practices. So, for example, if you have a hybrid situation where you have some people at home who are donating, and you have some people in the church who are donating, you could have people in the church who are using our envelope system, and you could have people using our donation app. And, you know, through the app, you can force the people who are donating to all have to come to the pulpit to bring their blessing to, you know, to one central place. So you don't have to have two different cultures existing within your church. You can still have that procession if you want, but you can also turn that feature off. So you can have people being able to donate from their chair, from where they're sitting, from across the world, at home. If you're live streaming, you can, people could obviously donate. And the benefits of that is where we've tried to differentiate ourselves is we have a real-time display. So for example, you take Bishop, and, you know, you can have a display in the background right next to where he's preaching. And on that display could be the goal that you've set for that Sunday service, for example. And, you know, I'm a big supporter of transparency. I think if you are honest and you let people know what you need as a church, people will get behind you. So I know some ministers, you know, telling people that we're trying to raise this for this target, or we need to at least reach this to cover our overhead for Sunday service, is something like, you know, we don't want to sort of talk about those sort of details. But I think that that's not the progressive way. I think so our system allows you to tailor it. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but you can display a real-time panel, which you can add some fun features to, like, you know, if you're saving up for a building, you could have a picture of the building behind the display. And as the donations are coming in, you can see the picture being revealed slowly as the donations are coming through. So people can see the fruits of their sowing into the ministry happening real time, whether they're in the church or whether they're remotely. So it brings together the community of giving, and adds a bit of gamification to that whole process. So, you know, whether it's a picture of the minister or a video of the whole church, everybody wants to see what the hidden video is. So it encourages everybody to donate and to hit that target. So that's some of the features that our system is bringing to this space. And as you mentioned, you know, we've been working on it, and just for a year or so. And it just so happened that God blessed us that, you know, just at the time when this pandemic happened, the thing was ready. So, you know, God works in mysterious ways, but he knows what he's doing when he's doing it.
Amen. So how does the app actually connect congregations? Because I think, you know, Bishop mentioned it, it's that connectivity that the church we miss. So how does it connect congregations?
Okay, good question. So one thing that we've tried to do with this app is to, because we mentioned cybersecurity, we mentioned fraud and all those different types of things. So this is a closed system. And when I say closed, it's not like if your members download this app, they can get a list of churches and charities and they choose and they have to find you. This is very specific to our client base and the churches that we work with. So our apps are available on Android and they're available on iOS. We're in a beta test phase at the moment. So people can go and they can download the app, but you can't be activated on the app unless we set you up on it. So there are controls. You don't want to be in a situation because it doesn't just do donations. It also helps you to organize your church. So you can send out tasks to your members. You can group your members into different ministries and you can send notifications and you can, people can collaborate on tasks and feedback to the ministers or the pastors, how they're getting on and all that sort of stuff. So you don't want to be doing that in a distributed system where you don't know who can see what. Yeah. So it's a controlled system. When people join, when your members join, a notification goes to the minister and the minister can accept that, that member so that, you know, they know who's on the system. Okay. So that's how it brings everybody together in a controlled way, in a safe way, in a way which still maintains the visibility amongst the congregation. And especially there's two apps. So there's a special app for the ministry and the people who are running the ministry. And then there's a special app for the members so that, you know, so that we don't get confusion and, you know, overwhelming people with too many features. The management team see what they need to see so that they can interact with the members, and the members see what they need to see so that they can participate in the congregation.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about donations, because a big thing right now is, you know, my donations are falling, not for Bishop Mark, of course, but, you know, a lot of churches are having the reverse.
We thank God. We thank God.
We thank God.
We thank God.
God helps those who help themselves.
Thank God. It's, you know, we thank God at the moment. Yeah.
Amen. So how does for those churches that, you know, want to or need to increase donations, how does it help them increase the donations they're getting into their ministry?
Okay, fantastic question. I mean, one of the things, I mean, we've touched on a number of things: being dynamic, being proactive, getting yourself set up on a system. A lot of people have moved to getting people to do direct debits and so on, which is fine, and it's, you know, it's a good natural way to sort of move. People are familiar with it and so on. But as a social construct, it doesn't help to create that dynamic relationship between your donors and your ministry. You know, you want to create a seamless and transparent way and an impromptu way of being able to donate. So what we're saying is, look, you know, if you're suffering from a decline in donations, what you should be doing is sitting down with your management team and putting together a plan, getting in touch with companies like ours and saying, look, you know, this is what we want to try and do. What technology do we need? How can we get this in place? And don't be scared to invest. The problem that I see often enough with churches is that they don't like paying for professional services. They don't like paying for things. And, you know, in that, what you're doing is you're taking a short-term view. You know, you have to believe in the conviction and, you know, what your purpose, you know, your God-given purpose was, and, you know, investing in that. You know, we've tried to structure our service whereby it's pay as you go. So, you know, if it's really not working for you after a month, you've not lost much. You've not lost anything at all. Even to help people get off the ground, we've offered a free trial for a number of months to just get people past that sort of. A lot of the time, I call it it's a pain bump where, you know, once you get over that and you get it up and running, I'm sure Bishop would testify to that, you know, once you've got it set up, you get used to it, you know, the difficulties of figuring it out, suddenly the benefits start to become abundantly clear. And so, yeah, I mean, the advantages of trying to get a system like this in place will mean that people find it a lot more fun and a lot more easier to donate. Hence, you should see your income increase.
Excellent.
Well, could I just say one quick question?
Yeah.
Corey, can you claim gift aid on fundraising money?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the money that's coming in through the activities that we're discussing here, it's all eligible for gift aid, provided you're a UK taxpayer and you're paying basic rate tax, at least. So if that's the case, which, you know, I'd like to think that, you know, where a lot of people are still in that situation. I know it's a difficult time for some people, but, you know, even if you're furloughed, even if you're not working currently right now, you would have paid into the tax system, you know, from the beginning of the year or whatever it is. So, you know, you can still donate and gift aid can be claimed. And obviously through our system, if you're donating through it, we'll make sure that gift aid is claimed. Absolutely.
It's excellent.
Excellent. And I just want to give you this question, Corey, from Elizabeth. Are visitors considered for the app, and how does that work?
Absolutely, brilliant question. So when you register on the app as a member, it gives you an option to apply as a member or a visitor. So you can choose, and it has a little description that says, you know, maybe if you're just an occasional person going to the church and you know, maybe you don't plan to go regularly and so on, then you can register as a member. And even when that registration goes through to the management of the church, they have the option to accept that application as a visitor or a member. So the control is within both parties to execute that. So yeah, it's
excellent.
And also as a visitor, you see slightly different information. So as a full member, there may be things like tasks and various things that the management team might want to pass to members, but not visitors.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully the benefits, I'm sure the benefits are clear as to why everybody should be trialing this app. But could you just summarize, Corey, why should the people on this webinar trial our app?
Well, first of all, the first thing that would jump into my mind is why not? You know, first of all, you want to be in a position where your members feel part of something, and people use their mobile phone many, many times a day. So if they've got something that connects them to you through their mobile phone, you know, whether it be that your minister wants to send out, it has a notice board feature where if you want to just send out a broadcast to all your membership, just so that everyone's on the same page quickly, you can do things like that. So, you know, if you've got events, you can put your events on the app and then it will be put automatically into your members' calendars. It's just a really easy, simple way to keep that connection, as Bishop was saying, you know. It's a way of being able to maintain that relationship, especially as we're more disparate. And it also makes the management and the administration of the church easier. You take pressure off the church. So, for example, you want to find out what your donation history has been like, or you want to claim back tax. Maybe if you're 40% taxpayer and you want to get a download of what your donations are, you can do that yourself on the app. You don't have to go to the church to ask them. You know, there's just so many fundamental things that, you know, the app helps you do that, you know, why wouldn't you want to use it to make your life and the church's life that much easier?
Excellent. And so on security and cyber safety, this is something that we've taken extremely seriously. Could you talk about how safe the app is?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the challenges that we've had in developing this is trying to keep the price point down. You know, our first port of call was to make the app, make it free. And in order to try and do that, you know, we was looking for companies that would provide the services, because as we've spoken about, fraud is rife on the internet. You cannot cut corners. So in the end, we had to choose a partner that had the right reputation, the right security protocols in place to make sure that when you put your credit card details, your credit card details aren't stored on our systems. They're stored by a service provider that has all of the security in place that you could ever wish to have. And so, to have those sorts of facilities, we've had to choose partners that do charge for their services, but we feel that, in this space, cutting corners is not the way to go.
Yeah.
So although there is a fixed cost to the app and using the service, within that, it covers you for, a number of transactions, which would probably cover most of, any church's transactions throughout a month. But what it also, it's very similar to if you're already using point of sales where you maybe take credit cards or something like that, maybe use WorldPay or whatever it might be. It's the same scenario. So you would already be paying those types of fixed fees for that service. If you could dispense with that, use our app, get a better service and not see any additional costs. So.
Excellent. And finally, if people are interested in trialing our mobile app, how do they go about it?
Okay, well, it's really easy. I mean, we're in a beta test phase, and when I say that, what it is, we're fortunate enough to, me being a software developer and my team, we're very close to the people who we work with and our client base. So what we wanted to do before we finally committed our app to the Android store and the Apple store is to have a broader research field and feedback from our client base to say, what features would you like to see? This is a great opportunity for churches to feedback pain points, features. It's like, look, we do this every Sunday. Is there a way that we can get? And all of that feedback is good game for us to go away and add those features into the system. So, but if you want to trial the app, you just go onto the, open up your mobile phone, go into your respective Play Store. If you're on the Apple platform, if you've got an iPhone, it's a bit more different. You need to download Test Pilot. And when you download Test Pilot, we can then deliver the app through that. But when we come out of beta test phase, then it will just be available in the App Store. If you're on Android, you could just go search for GoodtoGive and you'll find our apps there. Then you get in contact with us and we can get you set up with a demo system. And just maybe I would advise that the management team download it, pick one or two people amongst yourselves. We can give you dummy credit card details, everything, so that you can trial the whole thing and see what it would be like for your ministry without parting with a cent and without, risking anything and just see the benefits for yourself.
Great. So before we get into some questions, can I ask you, Bishop Mark, you have worked with us for many years. How has your experience of working with us been? And why would you advise others to work with GoodtoGive?
The two words come to mind: it's safe and efficient. That's for me, sums up GoodtoGive: safe and efficient. And we've been using this system now for many years. I remember the first day we introduced Dares to come down, and I think Corey was there with us, with our management, and explained it all to us. At the time, it was a bit over our heads at the time, but we understood the principle. Since we've adopted it, it's also allowed us to save. And as I said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That money that comes in is like money that we're not expecting, but we know where it goes when it comes in. It comes in sometimes at the nick of time for us. And we're also able to forecast if we're going to do any fund building or raising money. We can always look to the GoodtoGive money that will come in. As I said, safe and efficient. And I would advise every single church, especially in this time of COVID as well, that they could connect to something that's a proven track record. And I mean that. I'm not just saying it because it's worked for us and we wouldn't change it for anything else in the world. It's safe and efficient.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bishop Mark.
Can I just say something there? Thank you very much for that, Bishop. I mean, you know, when you're choosing partners to work with, you know, just in general, and when you think about the doctrines and you think about your principles and so on and so forth, one of the things that I'm proud of as a company founder and the business that we're in right now is that, you know, we value our clients and we value their data, right? There are lots of organizations that will give you free things and give you loads of things to use and so on and so forth, but that's all on the premise of them harvesting your data and using it for various purposes that you may not even be aware of. Whereas we've had a track record, you know, of not abusing our clients' data. We don't sell it, we don't do anything, you know, nefarious with it. And so, you know, if you're looking for a partner that you can trust, right, somebody who, you know what, am I going to feel comfortable giving these guys out my data and so on and so forth, then you need to look no further, because we have a proven track record of, you know, having integrity in that area and in general.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for your time. This has been invaluable. I'm sure those who've attended would have thought so. There's so many nuggets of wisdom shared. So we're almost out of time, but I just want to address a couple of questions. So someone is saying, is it correct that if you are opening your churches, the time you can spend in it is 40 minutes? Now, I've literally scoured over the documentation over the last couple of days and I saw no reference to that. But what I have done is I have put about 4 or 5 links in the chat box to all the references that I have used. These are all being updated sometimes on a daily basis. So I encourage you to really look at them and go back and revisit them. And we have another question related to gift aid, Corey. So can members who are not working and receiving universal credit claim gift aid on their offerings? My understanding is no. Okay.
No.
Okay, excellent. Well,
What you can do is use the gift aid small donation scheme. Okay. So, you know, if your church is already claiming gift aid on the traditional gift aid scheme and you're making donations to that church, if the church is for a client of ours, for example, then your donation, albeit it won't qualify for gift aid, would automatically go into the pot for the gift aid small donation scheme, where you don't need to be working, you don't need to, as long as the donation is £30 or less as an individual donation, then it can be claimed on from that perspective up to a limit. But yes, there is hope in that particular area.
Excellent. Bishop?
Just quickly, Corey, could you just explain again how you download the app to the iPhone? Just quickly.
So on the iPhone, what you need to do is go to test flight. So if you search, it's an app that you can install on your phone. It allows you to beta test new software. So once you've downloaded that, then you can log in with your iPhone details, etc. And then if you get in contact with us, you'd need to give us your email address that is associated with your iPhone account, not the password, obviously, just the email. And then we can put you on the system, and then it will include you in our beta test program, and then you'll see the apps appear, and then it will explain what the test is all about, and you can install it.
Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Bishop Mark, for your time and your insights. It has been incredible and very, very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
So before we tune out, I just want to let you all know that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow that will have the links that are mentioned in the chat box right now. And also a member of our team will be in touch to talk to you about how we can support you further. As soon as this webinar closes, you will also be redirected to a feedback survey. We would really appreciate your insights and your feedback on how you have found today. So that's it from us, and we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
You're excellent. Thank you very much.
Well done, Katrina.
Excellent. Well done, Katrina. Well done.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.